Well, I'm here at the hillside garden and it's quite a bit to do this time of year, even though it's looking kind of bleak. Fortunately, garlic looks after itself. The garlic I planted in a previous video is popping up there. We can see it. Should be fine. But the big job today is pruning the grapes. I really hate that job. I'm not a big fan because I'm not even into grapes really. I mean, we do get quite a lot of grapes if it's a good year, but we just get sick of them. We don't know what to do with them. So actually on this hillside here, on this kind of classic vineyard arrangement, I'm really looking for something else that I could do, something, more permaculture-y, is that a word? To kind of phase out these grapevines, or at least the ones that aren't producing. Now I've got a logbook, which I can't show you now, but it's a real mess and indecipherable anyway. But I've been noting which vines have not really been producing for us in the last few years, and I'd like to sit down and look at that and just get rid of those and start filling in those gaps with something else. But I'm still not sure what to really do on a hillside like this. Early succession stuff we need, like just planting trees or fruit trees doesn't do it for me. Raspberries, blackberries, that stuff, it won't grow in the blazing sun here. I've got kiwis on some of these. You can't see them from here. They're taking an age to grow because they're not, it's the wrong stage of the succession. We really need, to build up some kind of vegetation here on this hillside. So I don't know, if anyone's got any ideas, I'd be glad to hear them. But well, I did a short today just about how to prune grapevines, and I just wanted to expand on it and show you how I do it because I hate pruning vines. I just want to show you how, the quick way I do it, and without too much messing around. So I've done these already. This is what we call cordon pruning. I believe these are the cordons, but these crossways things, even if they're not, look it up on a website that's more knowledgeable than me, because I'm all about just getting this done as quickly as possible. The other method is cane pruning, which people usually do around here, and I'll just tell you what cane pruning is quickly. What people will do is, what the cane is, it's last year's growth. So there's a cane. I cut some of these back now. Okay, here's another cane. Here's lots of canes, and what they'll do is they'll select maybe just 2 canes from last year's growth, snip them back a bit, down to here somewhere, and they'll just lay them down, tie them to the wire, and then what will happen is from these nodes, new vines will sprout. Well, vertically, right? Because this will be horizontal, so they'll sprout vertically. And these are last year's canes, which grew last year. I know they grew last year because I cut them all back last year, all back to the bare cordon here. So I know these are grown last year, and that's what the grapes grow on, the current year's new growth. So no grapes will grow on this. The grapes will come on the vines that spring out of these nodes this year. So you'll get vertical vines with this cane method sprouting up the wire from each of the nodes we have on this branch, and those vertical sprouting vines, which you want to thin out a bit if there's too many, once they start growing, there's all kinds of things you can do there, but the basic idea is that from these 2 canes that we've selected, this year's growth will come, and then on this year's growth we'll get grapes. Does that make sense? I don't know, every time I've heard other people's explanations, it just sounds so complicated, and like I feel like I've explained it more clearly, but maybe I haven't. But let me tell you with a different example. So this is cane pruning, which most people do, and my neighbour, I won't show you now, but he'll have done it like that. But cordon pruning, I think, is even quicker and simpler. And now, why some people do cordon and some people do cane, there may be some issues with different varieties preferring different methods, but let's not get complicated with it. I just want to show you cordon pruning and expand on what I did in the short that I posted today. So again, going back, so this is last year's vine or cane, if you want to call it that, last year's growth. Nothing will grow, no grapes will grow now this year on that growth. You won't get like a random grapevine growing from here. Well, it's unlikely anyway. Where the grapes will grow, these nodes here will grow new vines upwards, and on those new vines, this year's vines, you'll get the grapes. But we don't want this many. There's just too many here. Like, imagine if a vine grew from each of the nodes on each of these canes. It will be a big tangled mess, and it wouldn't be productive because you'd just have too many flowers, too many bunches of grapes, and they wouldn't grow big, they wouldn't develop, and you probably get disease issues as well because the leaves and the growth is too dense and the air can't get in, all that kind of stuff. So what do? We want to cut each of these canes all the way back down. Instead of selecting 2 canes like they do with the other method, we're going to cut them all back, but we're going to leave just a couple of these nodes right down the bottom, as close to the bottom as possible. So this cane, see, this is the year before last growth, so I can't cut that back really. I'll get onto that in a minute. But this was this year's growth, and I'm going to cut this back to here. We've got just 2 nodes. Some will leave 3, some will leave 1. I mean, there might be another one there anyway. You don't want like 3 going out here, 3 going out here. So you do want to sort of cut it back as much as possible. See, this doesn't look very productive anyway. I'm going to cut this right back. I don't need it because I'm going to get 2 or 3 vines coming out of this. So cut that back. Okay, kind of cut this right off because we don't want that many vines too close to each other anyway, like that. Okay, there's another one coming up here. We've got a couple of nodes there. So we're just going to snip that back to there. So already we've just got the cordon like this, and we've got this coming out here. And that's it, that we're going to get vines coming out of that. And on those vines, we're going to get grapes. Now, what happens is, I hope that's fairly understandable. But what will happen is, next year, I'll have another cane coming out of here, and I have to snip that back. And what happens, this gradually gets longer and longer, this part that I'm sort of getting my vines from. This is 3 years growth ago, 2 years growth ago, last year's growth. Next year I'll get another one that I'll cut off, and it's too much, it's too high, like we're already halfway up the thing. So what do? Well, what we want is what's called renewal spurs. Now, I don't have anything I can see here that looks like a renewal spur, but it'd be something like this. So lower down the branch, normally you just snip this off. You don't want this lower down. You want it all coming up these main branches, but eventually these are going to get out of hand. These things are going to get too long, and I need to restart a whole new cordon from down here somewhere. So what I'm going to do is just cut this one back. Yeah, it's green inside. Cut that bit. Don't really need that. Don't need that. And see, what I'm hoping now is, it might be a bad example because I can't actually see a bud on this one, but what I'm hoping is this year I'll get a cane coming out of here, and I'll let that grow, and then next year I'll go, okay, it's time we renewed this whole branch, and I'll just snip the whole thing off here, and this will be my new cordon, and I'll lay that across like that, and that'll be a brand new cane that's going to become my cordon for next year. Does that, I don't know, again, now that I've been doing this a few years, it sounds kind of simple, but maybe it's still complicated, maybe you're intimidated by it. Just try to remember, grapes grow on this year's growth. You don't want too much of this year's growth, and you don't want any of last year's growth, just enough for this year's growth to come out of. And whatever way you do it, cane or cordon, or if you think of your own patented method, don't think that it's set in stone. All you want is a few buds for new vines to grow out of and for grapes to grow on, and you don't want too many of them. And just get cutting, and that's what I'm going to do. It takes me a little bit longer than it should because I'm collecting all the cuttings which we use for, kindling, and because otherwise it's a heck of a job, like picking it all up again afterwards. And that's all I wanted to talk about today. And we'll see what else is going on in the hillside garden at another date, because things are gradually beginning to spring into life. See you next time.